Good evening, everyone. My name is Ron Rice. I'm from Cowichan Tribes, from here on Vancouver Island. My hereditary name is Wolastoqiyik. On behalf of Pacific Opera Victoria, the Victoria Native Friendship Center, and the First Peoples Cultural Council, I'd like to acknowledge that we are gathered today on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen people, specifically the Songhees and Esquimalt nations. I'd also like to make a sealing acknowledgement and admire once again the beautiful creation of Carrie Newman. Everybody can guess which one he is. And turn things over to Ian.
Thank you, Ron. I'm Ian Rye with Pacific Opera Victoria, and it's my great pride and pleasure to welcome you all here to this extraordinary space and this extraordinary event. I wanted to talk a little bit about partnership. Beside me, Aliana and Ron, the Victoria Native Friendship Center, and of course, First Peoples Cultural Council have become these extraordinary leaders in the cultural and performance and arts community. And both Aliana and Ron represent a unique cohort in this community and in this city. And I love to think that, of course, opera has a place for so many Indigenous artists as well. And so we've had this amazing experience working with our partners on creation pieces, on education pieces, work in the schools, work with youth and children. Jeremy Dutcher's here, and tomorrow he's actually going to be working with youth from a number of programs on a workshop here in the Bauman Center before his performance tomorrow evening. If you don't have tickets for tomorrow evening, I'm sorry, we're sold out. But Jeremy, I'm sure, will tell us tonight that you can see him in Vancouver on what, Friday night, right, or Saturday night, and. Oh, Vancouver's sold out. Jeremy, you just done us harm. So we promise we'll get Jeremy back to Victoria if he'll come, and we'll make sure we have space for all of you. I wanted to pass the microphone off to Ileana from First Peoples Cultural Center before we introduce our special guests.
Thanks, Ian. Yes, so I'm Aliana Parker. I'm very pleased to be here tonight representing the First Peoples Cultural Council. We are very excited to be partnering with these two awesome organizations on this event tonight. The First Peoples Cultural Council is a First Nations-run organization that is provincial. It's based in BC, and its mandate is to support the revitalization of First Nations languages, arts, cultures, and heritage in the province. So my role as a language programs manager is to ensure that we get lots of support out to First Nations communities throughout the province to support them in the work that they're doing for language revitalization. There are, for those of you who might be interested, there are over 60 Indigenous languages in Canada that are Indigenous to the land that we call Canada, and 34 of them are Indigenous to the province here in BC. So there's really great language diversity throughout this nation and in this province. And this year 2019, is the International Year of Indigenous Languages as declared by UNESCO. So it's very exciting to be having this event right near the beginning of the year to celebrate this International Year of Indigenous Languages. Other exciting news on the Indigenous language front is that currently in the House of Commons, our federal government is working on federal legislation to recognize all of the original languages of this land. So they are working on an Indigenous Languages Act that will acknowledge all of the Indigenous languages of Canada and hopefully implement policy and funding support to ensure that these languages are here and accessible into the future. So it's very exciting times. So this is a really great way to also be celebrating some of this exciting language revitalization work that's happening around the country. Pass it back to you.
I'm actually going to let Ron introduce our various guests.
So our moderator this evening, I mean, almost needs no introduction, really. Look at her, she's waving at everybody in the audience. She knows everyone. CBC personality, chancellor at the University of Victoria, all-around amazing woman, Shelagh Rogers. And our very special guest, the winner of the Polaris Prize, Mr. Jeremy Dutcher. So maybe we'll take a step off the stage and let you guys have your seats, and then we'll introduce the group.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Come on up. And while Jeremy and Sheila are taking their seats, we're going to kick off this evening with a couple of songs from this amazing drum group here called Answer. I'm very pleased to introduce to all of you Answer, which stands for, I had to write it down, All Nations Strong Women for Education and Reconciliation. They are an urban-based drum group here in Victoria that have been meeting together, singing and drumming together for about 2 years. They represent a number of those different nations and languages across Canada, including Mi'kmaq, Anishinaabe, Mohawk, Dene, Métis, Cree, and New Channels. They do lots of volunteer work with their drumming and singing and outside of that as well in schools and communities. And they drum and sing to carry on their traditions, to carry on their songs. And they work to follow protocols and to follow their values of gratitude and humility and respect through all of the work that they do. So I will pass on the microphone to them and let them introduce these next songs. Do you need a mic? Okay.
I don't feel like I do, but Rebecca told me to use it. Gwe nina migi mewa Jack Telawisi Sarah Gwe Gaspege Wage Manawaki Anishinaabe Kwe. My name's Sarah Rude, and I'm a Mi'kmaq Algonquin woman. I've been a visitor and a grateful guest in this territory for almost 20 years now. And before we start, particularly as a group, we really want to acknowledge, and I want to acknowledge in the language of this land, the language that the ancestors and the water, the trees, and the animals understand, the way I've been taught by my elder Butch Dick. Siem, Nushwelakwa, Siem, Nuchelacha, Haishkwa, Guanzana, Techel, Laquangan Tunnelth, Haichka Siem, Naquilia. I really am always very grateful to the Lekwungen people who give us permission to share our songs and lay our language down in this territory. So we want to start from that place. We're going to sing 2 songs for you today, and both the songs that we chose are songs that I will actually say sometimes I feel like almost nervous to sing because they're songs we composed and they have our language in it, and some of us are just learning our language or have to learn it very, very far from our traditional territories, and so it can be nerve-wracking, but we wanted to share 2 songs that were written and composed by women in this group. The first one's a Mi'kmaq song to honor Jeremy being here, and it's a medicine song. So it's a song to share good medicine with you all. It has the teachings of the number 4 in it, and it has many teachings embedded in it. And I hope that you'll feel them as we drum and dance it.
That was a Mohawk friendship song. The next song you're going to hear is the gratitude song. Gratitude is one of our main values in First Nations culture, and we always like to give gratitude, and you'll hear all of our thank yous in our language.
Over to us. Over to us.
Oh, do we have to?
Haijka to these beautiful women. That was so moving. Thank you for sharing your songs and your language with all of us and for honoring our very special guest this evening. What a beautiful way to start. And my heart's already flying out of my bra, I guess, there's my dignified beginning to the evening, I must say. But I want to acknowledge the territory, of course, and express my gratitude for the life that I'm very privileged to live here. My home is on Snuneymuxw First Nation territory, where I'm a visitor. My ancestry is Métis and Scottish, from Métis from the Red River area. And it's a real privilege to be here. And I would like to acknowledge the elders who are with us in the room, some of whom, such as, if you'll forgive me, Dr. Lorna Williams, who is here tonight, who has had so much to do with language revitalization and with the United Nations declaring this the year of Indigenous languages. So I raise my hands to you, Dr. Williams. And to the great musicians who are in our gathering as well. Sandy Schofield has come over from Vancouver. I can't see all of you, but thank you for making the journey that you made this evening to hear from me once I stop talking. I mean, from my guest, once I stop talking. Jeremy Dutcher, can we warmly welcome him to our territory, Lekwungen speaking territory? Yeah, okay. Aiskis Yem. Gwe.
Dungak.
Dungak. Dangak.
You beat me to it. Mention the best squin. I'm at one with myself.
Beautiful.
I'm at one with my spirit. Or I could say, Wula Dahazu. I'm feeling good.
Good.
Yeah, I'm having good thoughts.
You've just come from Winnipeg.
I did. Treaty 1 territory.
Treaty 1 territory, the heartland of the Métis Nation.
It's so
Yeah,
beautiful
yeah.
there. I would say, I always say when two rivers meet, it's a very powerful confluence. The place where I come from, Nugutkook, is right at the confluence of the Wolastoqiyik River and the Nugutkook River. And so where they meet is a very special place to me. And now I get to go around and see all these places where rivers are meeting. And it's a very powerful place.
What is the land like? There are the rivers, but can you describe what your land is like?
Oh, in New Brunswick.
Oh, well, not the whole province.
Yeah, so I sort of grew up in between worlds a little bit. So my mother's community is Nugutkook, or what's called Tobic First Nation.
All right.
In the northwestern part of New Brunswick. But my parents wanted to have us schooled in Fredericton. So that's we would do our school time there and then spend a lot of time going back and forth. So that drive I remember really, really vividly all the time.
Yeah.
So many big moments happened on that drive, you know. And depending on the time of year too, it's going to be a totally different experience. Yeah. I came out on that drive too.
Wow. How old were you?
I was 12 years old. Don't do it in a car. Because then you can't leave. Like, the best part is that you can, like, do it and then, like, okay, bye. You just sit with that for a while. I'm going to go. But no, you're stuck in a car for 2 hours.
Were you driving?
I was, no. I was far too young. Sheila, I was 12 years old.
Nothing.
It's New Brunswick.
I will say, nothing about you surprises me. But that's not entirely true.
Mysterious
But how
creatures.
was it for you and your family?
I was very well supported by my immediate family.
Wonderful,
And well protected. You know, I'm the youngest of 4 boys. So I have 3 older brothers. And yeah, so I was protected. And they're all quite big, you know. So that helps. But no. I should say that, you know, it was not always easy. Living in this place and inhabiting the body I happen to inhabit on a couple levels. But you know, you find solace in art and in music and in many things that led me to you. This is such a pleasure. I never thought I'd be doing this. Shelagh Rogers.
Well, I mean,
Come on.
well, here I'll tell you. The first time I heard Jeremy was driving over the Malahat, and I was listening to Unreserved, and she was talking to Trailblazers.
Rosanna Deerchild.
Rosanna Deerchild. Ro. She calls me Auntie Shishi.
Do you get to call her Ro? We're
I do
not
call
there
her Ro.
yet.
Okay,
No. We
let's-
just did an interview though yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Well, I was in Winnipeg.
Of course.
And so she had me over to the CBC.
Such a
and,
nice building.
Well, you know, and they stick them right in the corner too.
Yes,
So,
that's right. Yeah. But
can't air that.
hearing your music, it was
Good pivot.
he knows
Rosanna
he knows
Deerchild.
all the tricks.
I do.
She is, but okay, she's incredible.
Yeah, she
I
is.
bow.
Truly.
Yeah, she is really
Queen.
wonderful. What did you talk about?
Oh, lots of stuff. You know, it is a tangent. We shouldn't.
Okay,
take
we
every
shouldn't.
road.
Okay.
We did talk
But-
about everything though. I'm sure
Yeah.
you could look it up on cbc.ca and.
Wow.
I'm just kidding.
Did you grow up with CBC as well?
Oh yeah, don't get
Oh,
me
that's-
started.
Scary.
Oh no! I did truly, and you know, it's media institutions, especially ones that are balanced. You know, I look at what's happening. You know, what has been happening for a long time in the American media discourse, and it's like really polarized. And anyway.
Another, yeah.
This is really far off track. Already
Okay.
we've gone there.
Oh,
Sorry.
let
There's a
me
lot to
bring
talk
you-
about in Canada too.
It's
Oh my
true, we do. But I want to bring you back to your music, to your community, to language. But in my experience, first of all, hearing your music, it was Mejanut, the first song from your Mejanut, your album.
Yeah.
And it was so powerful. I had to pull over and look for the windshield wipers for my eyes. It was really something. I've subsequently described it to you as having my heart removed from my body and
I'm
having.
sorry about that, by
but
the
you
way.
know, I like the heart removed with you walking all over it in stilettos.
Stilettos.
In
Was the,
stilettos.
yeah, that was the particular imagery that I quite appreciated. We'll see what the Junos holds.
Yeah, it was a wonderful encounter. So I've
Yeah.
wanted to talk to you as well.
I love that track so much. You know, that one was the first. That was the first archive that I actually got to sit down and listen to, and that's Jim Paul. Jim comes from Sidunsisk First Nation. That was collected in 1907, or maybe that one was 1911.
Yeah.
I
It's
should,
okay.
I
It's
should learn these. You know, it's been a long tour. But it's a really special track, and
Have you all, who has not heard Mejanut? Okay, maybe we can describe how it begins.
well, it's
and-
really for me. It's the start of the album, and it really sets up the premise of the record, and what I wanted, the story I wanted to tell. It was really all about being in conversation with this archive. So about a little over 5 years ago now, I was sitting down with an elder of mine named Maggie Paul, who lives in Sidunsisk in St. Mary's First Nation, in Wolastoqiyik territory. And though she's Passamaquoddy, the Passamaquoddy and the Wolastoqiyik, we share a language. We're we're very similar, but they live on the American side, and we
Maine,
live on the Canadian side. In
yeah.
Maine, yeah, exactly. You know, we did not cross the border. The border crossed us.
Yes, exactly.
So she's been living up in our territory for a long time. Anyway, so much to say. We were sitting around her table, seated. That's sorry.
No, don't think of me as the CBC, okay? Like, really.
It's a little hard. You've had such an amazing career outside of the CBC too.
Oh, well, that's kind of you. But
As a witness with the TRC and the work that you've done for being witness to our community and the work that needs to be done in this country to get to where we need to go together.
thank you for your kind words. And thanks for checking me out.
As
but
was
seriously,
said, she needs no introduction.
it was an
Yeah.
honor. It was an honor. It still is an honor. Yeah.
We have so much to talk about.
Yeah,
You know?
but this is your life
No, my
tonight. Oh yeah,
gosh,
no. Honestly, this mingling, the fact that you are singing with your ancestors on this album is so powerful to listen to. What is it like for you?
It was hard at first. I think. I know.
Why
it was hard
was
at
it
first. I didn't sing them for a long time. You know, like I wanted to be engaged in a process of deep listening first. And so when I heard those archives for the first time, I didn't try to sing them. I just sat with them for a very long time and tried to understand what they were telling me. And you know, I'm very fortunate to be a speaker of my language. But even some of these ones, the language is so old that you can't even make it out. So I had to go to people like Maggie, elders in my community, and sit with them and you know, and offer them tobacco. By the way, you've all been offered something tonight. That was very beautiful. Thank you. I want to acknowledge that. That was this means something in our culture. So I hope you take this offering with you. And it means you have to do whatever they say. So, so you're on notice. Oh, where were we, Sheila?
Okay, here's where we were.
You got to steer us back.
I'm
way over here. Water's nice.
So 5 years ago, I want to imagine you in a room where you're hearing the songs from the wax cylinder for the very first time.
You know, it wasn't a glamorous room, I will say. It was the basement of the Canadian Museum of History.
Only the best. Eh?
Only
Yeah.
the best. No, it's really a spectacular building. Yeah, because it's part of the Museum of Civilization, right?
Yes.
And this, do you know the architect?
Douglas Cardinal.
Yes, yes. I got to meet him not so long ago. He came to a
Wow.
show.
Fabulous.
And, yeah. Indigenous brilliance we are surrounded by in this country.
You talked about the Renaissance the night you won the Polaris Prize.
Yeah, I said a lot of things then, didn't I?
You did, spectacularly, I must say. But
Yeah.
yeah,
We're in a moment.
it's a good
There's been
moment.
other moments.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah.
But this one's particular. And our artists are illuminating a path forward.
Just as Louis Riel predicted. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely he was a prophetic one, wasn't he?
He was pretty
You know, it is really amazing.
It's a great time.
Yeah.
So much going on in so many. Well, how many Indigenous people have actually won the Polaris Prize? Canada's
Surprisingly,
yeah,
many.
this is-
you know,
yes.
so like Buffy St. Marie,
Yeah.
the queen of us all. She deserves claps in every room. She deserves all the applause she can get. First of all,
yeah.
this woman has been on the front of just about everything of music, of technology, of blending the two, of you know, showing natural bodies on television. My God, it was a radical act, you know, and an Indigenous woman had to do it.
And she
Of
did.
course. And she
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
And she was blacklisted for it.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and many people, even in this country, went along with it. And so, yeah, she deserves all the credit she gets. And this Polaris Prize, I think, it was a nice way to honor her. But also, you know, Tanya Tagak
Yes.
and Lido Pimienta
Yes.
and myself, I guess.
Yeah, and very your little old self. Yeah.
Fun.
Right,
I mean, it's a beautiful cohort. So much to say. You
yes,
know, it's to be even acknowledged or considered among those musicians, and I know them now personally too, which is amazing, and they're just artists.
Yeah.
You know, and I merely aspire to that. So it's really amazing to be in the presence of that. I did a concert with Yo-Yo Ma this year. I sang at Joni Mitchell's birthday party. I don't know what's going on, Sheila.
It's beautiful.
I just wanted to do a little record in my language, and now it's I'm not sleeping in my bed anymore, that's for sure.
Do you know what I think is going on?
What's up?
I think you are who your ancestors wanted you to be.
It's a wild dream, isn't it? You know, I think about that a lot. So, taking it back to the wax cylinders, this anthropologist, he goes into our community, lives among my people for about 7 years, collects 100 of our traditional songs, and stories, takes photographs, and really, really lives among the people. He shows up to the community with this big gramophone and puts it in front of the people and says, "Sing me your songs." And keep in mind, this is at a time, you know, in the early 1900s, when it was illegal for us to gather to sing song, you know? Even, I mean, especially if we want to talk about the West Coast, we need to be talking about potlatch bands.
Yeah.
These songs were collected at a time where it wasn't safe to be who we were. We're not in that. I can't say that. can't say that. I was just in Winnipeg. I just stood by the Red River. Okay.
But the songs.
The
The
songs.
songs were collected. I mean, collection itself is controversial. Anthropologists coming into communities to study Indigenous people. However, do we know this man, Meshling? Is that his name?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think there was some debate,
Yeah.
Meckling or Meshling,
Yeah,
but
okay.
I think
Yeah,
I think
Meckling.
I would
Yeah.
say he was of German ancestry.
Oh, okay.
You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think he gets a lot of credit.
Yeah.
A lot of people have a lot of questions about him, like why he would come and hang out with us. He gets enough credit. I like to think
Yeah.
about my people, my ancestors in that moment. And this is like what I was saying, like when they leaned into that gramophone and sang that song, what were they thinking it was going?
Right. Yeah.
And did they think it was going to come out on this side?
Into the future. Yeah.
And then I'm putting out something else into another future.
Yeah.
And it's just a cycle. And it's a circle all the way up and down, Anyway, we're off it again.
So that's okay. You know what?
Music. A
Here's
circle.
something.
The cylinders.
There is
There you
no
go again.
on.
My
I'm
God.
going to put this thing away, and because I think we'll just go heart to heart, okay? And I'm holding a stone. This was Richard Wagamese's stone, and he was a very dear friend, and he always said, "Speak from your heart." And so I figure I'm holding this, you're holding the eagle feather. I think we can proceed, my man. And
Sheila. I had hoped you would.
wow.
No,
Are
I'm
you-
kidding. I'll do this anyway. I'll do it anyway. But I like this.
Okay,
I like
me
this.
too. So I do want to imagine you in that room, even if it wasn't the most luxurious room
Yes.
in the museum.
Yeah.
And you do hear this voice from 1907
Yeah.
from your community. What went through your mind, through your heart?
I guess I was just called to show how beautiful it was. Because I knew as soon as I heard it that they called for a response. They wanted to hear something. And I heard so much under them too. They're melodies, but for me there was a symphony under it, which is it's like I say it now and it's like ooh. But it's funny because Maggie, this elder who told me about these songs, she says the same thing.
Wow.
She came to me, she says, when I hear those songs, I hear symphonies under them. And I was like, I felt the same way, And so they begged for a response and to be colored in a little bit and contextualized. But I was never scared to put myself into them as well. I think we need to acknowledge that culture is not static, and it breathes, and it lives. Even looking at the title of this talk, we're talking about traditional languages. What does that mean? It's my language now.
Traditional does something, doesn't it?
It
That
puts us
word, yeah.
back there. Instead of breathing today and expanding today. There's something going on, in that.
That's really interesting. Words are so important. In the songs, I don't know what the songs are about.
That's okay.
I think it is okay, right? But what
Lots
are
of people don't,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Even some of my people
Yeah.
don't.
really?
You
Yeah,
know?
Yeah.
We need to talk about what's happened with our languages.
Yes. Yeah.
I think about my mother a lot when I do this work. She grew up, and until she was 6 years old, the only language that she spoke was Wolastoqiyik. And then she went into day schools. And there's a whole culture of devaluation, a culture that devalues our language and our culture, and tells children that their parents are going to hell and that they're sinful. She carried a lot of shame around her language. And so this work around linguistic revitalization, for me, is because of her. Because it wasn't part of her existence or her possibilities, you know? When she was growing up, everybody in our community spoke the language. Now there are less than 100 fluent speakers left.
Wow.
And so I think for me, the scariness, and this is a story from coast to coast to coast.
Yeah.
Believe that
Yes, I do.
with our languages. And we need to start recognizing that when we're losing language, we're not losing words. We're losing entire worldviews and ways of seeing the world, and ones that are so connected to this particular place, wherever this place happens to be. What's in those languages is medicine. And it's what's actually going to help us move forward. And trust and believe we don't have a lot of time, you know? We do not need to look very far past the UN reports. And I mean, to be fair, Inuit grandmothers have been telling us this they've been telling the scientists this for almost generations, let's say. And yet science we're catching up, you know? Our matriarchs, they always lead the way. There it is.
There it is, yeah.
This is the conundrum of contemporary existence.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
You know?
yeah. When you learned your language, how did it change how you walked in the world?
Well, I like to think of my language as pretty in me and of me. And so I would say, like, I've come into better understanding of it and a clearer, a deeper understanding of it. But it's always been around. There's never a time in my life when Wolastoq wasn't present in my home. My mother spoke to her mother, and my aunt's a language teacher, and it was just always around. You know, I've definitely realizing the urgency really lit a fire. You know, it actually I can tell you the story. I've told it a couple times, so if you've heard it before, sorry. But it was I was, you know, as a good classical music student. Here we go. You study your languages, and what languages are the operas in?
Italian,
German.
German.
They're all so beautiful,
French,
you know.
Russian.
And I did love to study them.
Yeah.
But it was one sort of German test that I was cramming for. And, you know, these big, long conjunct words. It's just a lot, you know? And I know it's similar to English, but, you know. But I was sitting in that room, and it just hit me that, like, German's gonna be fine. You know? There's, like, countries of people that speak that language. And there's one place where my language is spoken.
Wow. What an
You know?
epiphany.
So it's like, I need to put my everything into this. This is my life's work. And yeah, the songs are a part of that, for sure. But it's not the totality of it. You know, even digging into that archive, and this is what it was so important to take that archive and shine it back into the community, because it's not just songs, it's also stories. And so getting to read those stories and coming to understand like a written, like oral worldview, this takes you deeper into a cultural understanding and how we're so intimately interrelated to the land. So for me, the stories have been a really interesting site, both of language learning and of just coming to understand myself in this place. And yeah, what are the odd juxtapositions of contemporary Indigenous life, you know?
Right. Yeah.
We're all connected, right? In a couple ways. In a couple ways. So, you know, but I get to go around a lot with this album and this project. And I get to meet so many amazing people wherever I go. People that are really concerned, and a lot of people that are really fighting for their language and their land. Like I was saying, I do it for my mother, and what I do now is not possible in her generation. So I like to think about that too. I like to think about the infinite possibilities of my current reality, just based on how far a needle has moved. And yet, our communities are still on bold water advisory. So I sit in that dual truth. And that's hard. And that makes you angry sometimes. And I get it out on the piano, don't worry. It takes it all, it takes it all. You just put it into the keys and it just... I had a pianist friend sit beside me one time when I was playing. And they said, you play piano like a drummer. And I thought, yeah, I do. And percussion is my first instrument too. Yes, actually I was a drummer long before I was a pianist.
Wow.
Yeah, this is all just self-taught nonsense. So I could sing. I'm just kidding, come to the show, it'll be wonderful. It's sold out, sorry. I'll be back soon.
You really will, won't you?
Yeah, oh yeah. This, every time I come back to this part of Turtle Island, I am struck. I'm shaken, you know? Maybe it's just because, like, we're water people, right? Like, as an East Coast being, you know, being near that water is such an important element to my existence. Wolastoqiyik is the first word of the record.
Wolastoqiyik.
And that, Wolastoq is the beautiful river. And that's that river that runs from the Gulf of St. Lawrence all the way down to the ocean, through what's called New Brunswick today.
Right,
but what has always been Skijinawiyagok, Wabanakiyik, Wolastoqiyik.
Wolastoqiyik.
So, Wolastoq, the river. Wolastoqiyik. Iyik is a suffix and it means the people of. So we're the people of that beautiful river. A lot of people know us as Maliseet.
Yeah.
So, my Mi'kmaq sisters in the room. I'm sorry, we have a disagreement here. You know, when the Europeans first came to these lands, they said, hey, Mi'kmaq, who are those people over there? They were talking about us. And you guys said, Malazi, Maliseet. And what that means is the ones that don't talk very good. The slow talkers. Which I still contend that y'all are just the fast talkers. But what I think is really, really important in reclaiming our names is because it tells us how to live. We are the people of that river. And so intimately we are tied and connected to that place. We are from that river. So the second word on the record is Lintuwakonawa. Since we're doing a language lesson now, I'm really, I always said, you know, if I wasn't a musician, I would definitely be a language teacher. So here we go.
Lintuwakonawa?
Sorry?
Lintuwakonawa?
Oh, I'm proud of you.
Okay, I have been
I would say
practicing.
Lintuwakonawa.
Well, you would say that.
Oh, yeah. So, can I break it down for you?
Please.
Lintu
Lintu.
is to sing. Lintuwagan is a song. Lintuwaganawa is songs. So, Wolastoqiyik Lintuwakonawa, the songs of the river people, the beautiful river people.
Gorgeous.
Can't forget that part.
Yeah.
Because
that's
it is
lovely.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Have you been to New Brunswick, our territory?
Yes, I have, and it is beautiful.
Tell me about it.
Oh, that river. I swim in that river, right, Charlie? When I'm there, I can't resist. It's cold. It's lovely.
Yeah?
You're
Yeah.
going through menopause. You want to jump in. You want to jump in that river, okay? I'm just
I'm
saying.
going to take that on good
You know-
authority. Amazing.
The country is the land. The land is bosomy. How's that?
Rolling greens.
Rolling greens, yes.
You
It's way better. I seem to have the bra started things off this
Yeah,
evening.
no. I don't
but-
mind. We all need support.
Oh, we do, yeah.
We all need support.
But yes, it's beautiful. And when you describe, when you break down the word, it is no wonder there are symphonies under
Well, you know,
yeah,
like
under the
these
music.
languages,
Yeah.
they're musical in their essence, in their
Yeah.
core. Sorry, I'm doing this off microphone. The languages, they're so beautiful to their core.
And their essence.
You know, and there's a melody to them. And so for me as a composer or as a musical creator, whatever we're calling it now, I wanted to create a world around it, you know?
And you're in conversation with it as well.
This was a critical, you know, I could have done this album a couple ways, right? I went to the archive, got to listen to it, was like struck by its beauty. Buffy St. Marie, we're going to circle back to my queen. She says that in life, if what you want is not on the menu, you have to go into the kitchen, cook it up, and show them how good it tastes.
Beautiful.
You know?
Yeah.
And this is exactly what I wanted to do with that archive, was to show them how good it tastes. Sorry, I've gone on another tangent. I
No,
don't know.
but
I
it's-
just love telling stories about Buffy St. Marie. Have you read the new book?
I
Andrew
haven't read the
Warner.
new book. I read the previous book, but I got to talk to her last
did?
year. Yeah.
Oh, what was this
on my
like?
list? Well, it
How
was
do you
about
prepare-
it was
how do you
about
prepare f-
housing.
Oh, see, that's what I'm talking about.
Exactly.
She's always like
She is.
3 steps ahead of us.
She's an inventor.
Yes.
And but the big thing I took away was this line: "Keep your nose on the joy trail."
Oof.
Yeah.
Isn't that just it?
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah. How are you
Yeah.
keeping your nose on the joy trail these days?
Have you met my
Sheila?
husband?
He has it. What was it? HC, right?
Sorry, Charlie. But, it's HC, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely.
He's a
Yeah.
lovely man. And thank you. And friends, family, friends,
Yeah.
family, friends. Reconnecting with my family in Manitoba has been,
This sounds like such a journey.
it's been a great journey.
I'm so interested
And,
to know about this.
well,
For another time,
We'll
maybe.
do it. We'll
I
do
think
it
we'll have
another
to get
time,
together
but-
for a
but,
coffee,
you know,
or something.
A coffee would be. I
Little-
love
a little
coffee.
fewer cameras around, maybe. You know,
But
the
yeah.
lights. Although, also, I need to acknowledge can we
Carrie
look up?
Newman. Yeah. Look way up.
Way up. Oh, where, Bill? Up there. It's so beautiful. And my impression is that, is the artist here tonight?
He doesn't have to stand up. His head's above everybody else's, but that's
You're
Carrie Newman.
incredible, and
Yeah.
I love your family. Have you heard his sister sing?
I have heard his sister sing.
Oh.
Marion Newman is amazing. I believe your other sister Ellen is with you this evening. There you are, Ellen. Hi.
Hi.
And Carrie's mother Edith is right here.
Where?
Right here.
Hi. Oh,
So
good
there
to see
you are.
again.
Yeah. Friends, family, how are you? What's
Finally, we got there.
Oh, no,
I'm good. I'm just. No, but it's nice to be asked. Let me tell you. Nobody ever asks. No, that's not true. I'm doing fine, Sheila. I'm doing fine.
I'll add to that question in a moment. But
But how am I? Yeah.
what is filling you up right now?
Ooh, this is okay. I like this. Community. Like I said, you know, wherever I go, wherever I stop, I get such a beautiful welcome. On whosever territory it is. I was gifted a buffalo drum in Winnipeg yesterday, and I was feasted in Brandon, Manitoba before that.
Lovely.
And then when I was in the Northwest Territories, I got to meet some of the best storytellers I've ever met. The Dene Nation, oh my God.
There we are.
Shout out. And amazing too, in terms of language, if we want to get back to linguistic revitalization.
Whatever you like.
Right, we're on a journey now. I forgot. The covenant, it's been...
But you know, it's about circles.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, so
so,
language.
yeah.
There's some really, really cool stuff going on up there around like language programming, media actually in our language. This is something that's very, very important. And what I think a lot of us hope the promise of APTN would be. This isn't the case so much. But really trying to encourage language programming, because this, for people to come into contact with media in our languages, this actually shapes hearts and minds and delves you into a level of fluency that I think is really important. And this is what we desperately need on the East Coast, is we need some of these resources, some of these, you know, I was very fortunate to have ready access, just because my mom was really involved in the community, and so we knew all the resources out there, but I think it wasn't very widely accessible. We really had to search for it. And now, you know, in recent years, we now have a dictionary of our language, which is really exciting, and a really cool online website too. An online website. Listen to me. Just a website. Just a website. A really great website, and there's tons of like videos of just a camera sitting there, and elders around the table, and them just speaking to each other, you know? And this is probably the most valuable resource I've found as somebody who really had to work to deepen my understanding of the language, was just being able to have those records, you know? And dig into that. This is such a beautiful project, the Passamaquoddy Maliseet language portal. They do a lot of cool work, and it's really special. You know, because I think there's like I said, it's really critical right now where our language is at. It's considered a severely endangered language. I know there was somebody who came up and gave some numbers about our languages, and many of them are severely endangered, including Wolastoqiyik. And yeah, I just think I have a responsibility to go and to share it because I had a relationship with that language growing up. And not everyone had this. Not everyone had that opportunity.
And sometimes it was stolen. Sometimes it was dangerous to speak it. Sometimes it was illegal. Yeah.
It's
All of
all in
that,
this context. And so we can never forget this. But I think we can't live in it and let that not make us do the work. Because it is work to make it live. We have to gather. We have to tell stories to each other. We have to be with each other in a really profound way. And one that is not, what I worry and what I see is that a lot of people save our languages for ceremonial times. And I really think this is, we lose something when this is the case. And this is not to say that ceremony has its own language that it works through. But we need to keep alive the everyday relationality of our language and languages. I speak about this very broadly because there's something in them that dictates how we live in this world. I was gonna wear a shirt with a tree on it tonight, but I went out and bought this sweater last minute because I couldn't wear a t-shirt in front of Shelagh Rogers.
Oh, dear. You should see what I wear on the radio.
Oh, I bet.
Like, really? Not.
Is it a pants day or no? I'm sorry, that's disrespectful. I apologize.
You don't need to apologize for 1 second.
So much to say, I was going to wear a shirt with a tree on it.
Yeah.
And trees are very special to me. We call them a Biziak. And remember how we talked about Wolastoqiyik?
Yeah.
The people. Those are the tree people.
We have tree people here too, don't we? I believe we do.
Tree people everywhere, my dear.
Yeah.
And it is coming to understand that as relation, as relative, as kin, that fundamentally changes how we live among it, in relationship with it. So I think that's why there's so much urgency to keep these alive and to keep this understanding alive. Because it's timely, because this is what we need. And it's all within a context and a history. And it's a history that we're just finally coming to talk about widely. Imagine, my father was a Canadian history teacher, a prof at University of New Brunswick and a couple different ones on the East Coast. And he made very sure that we knew a clear history, a balanced history of this place. And I always felt like, like all the students were just reading out of these textbooks that just left out so much, that didn't contextualize anything that I saw around me. And so I've missed the train, Sheila.
I like the train you're on.
I'm sorry, you know how you're going down a path and then it's just whoo. Mental pause.
Who said that? That's
I'm on
awesome.
my own
That's
journey
awesome,
up here,
I have to ask you a question.
Getting heckled by the aunties. Yeah.
We are going to play part of this conversation on the next chapter of the program that I host, but I have to ask you what you're reading.
You told me you were going to ask me this too. What am I reading? I'm reading so much. I do this thing where I take around, so I'm on the road a lot, and I try to pack light, so I don't have to wait up for the bag on the belt, and but I always pack way too many books, and I never get to them. But I don't think I can get behind this Kindle thing. I don't know. Do you use it? No.
No.
No, you're about the...
I like the smell of a book. I like the feel of a book.
I'm reading a lot of
yeah.
poetry lately, I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. Somebody that's really lighting me up right now is Billy Ray Belcourt.
Yes, he's-
Also, Ariel Twist. Have you heard about her?
No.
She's just coming out with her first collection. She's Cree, but based out of Halifax.
Fantastic.
Jibuktuk. Have you been to Jibuktuk before?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I lived there for 6 years.
Wow.
It's, Mi'kmaq territory. It's yes, it's good.
Yeah.
They finally took that statue down. Cornwallis, did you hear about that?
I did hear about
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
You've been telling stories. You've been reporting on very important issues for a long time.
400 years. No, once upon a time, I've been at the CBC in broadcasting for 40 years, right? Somehow a zero got added, and I just really like the zero a lot. I like 400 years. It's awesome.
Timeless you are.
Well, you know.
Timeless.
But so the future, I know you're on this continuum where time is all time, and it's like a big sphere. Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
But next, where will you go? What are you dreaming about?
There's so many stories I want to tell. You know, I think there's a lot of narratives that need to come forward. For a long time, our stories weren't told by us. You know, even what most people think of as Indigenous in their mind is from cowboys and Indians. You know, it's we're so diverse in who we are, and yet I always need to tell stories from my place, from where I come from my community. And there's so many. You know, the campaigning that happened around Bill C-31, you know, the Tobic women, they protested and they marched on Ottawa with tons of women from around this country and got that law changed, got the sex discrimination taken out of the Indian Act, you know? And so these were women that really, they occupied the band office. And so the whole issue was around housing, right? And so they said, well, if you're not going to provide proper housing for us, we now live in your office. And they moved a bunch of people in, kids, everyone. And it was this whole
Brilliant.
yeah, it's just acts of protests because we deserve infrastructure. We deserve to have clean drinking water. We deserve to not have moldy houses on our own lands. This is one of the most resource-rich countries in the world. And our Indigenous people often struggle. And this is not a totality of narrative. And I really struggle to not focus on negative because there's so many stories of beauty and resilience,
Yes.
and I hope mine is one of them. And I hope that I can lift up beauty and lift up love as something that is actually going to move us forward, you know?
I'm very happy you mentioned love.
Oh, me too.
Because I have one last question for you, and I think it's the question I always want to end with. And it's not really my question. It's the great American philosopher Tina Turner's question. What's love got to do with it? In case you missed it,
No.
got to do with it. Got to do with it.
And so on, and
But-
so on.
I want you to talk about love as we close our hour together, Jeremy. I want to see love come into common dialogue, common parlance, and you are already doing that. And
Am I?
Yeah, you are.
Oh, good.
You are raising that. Everything. If you're not saying it's love, you're talking about community, culture, ancestors, family, with love. So, what's love? Got to do with it. Got to do with it.
You know, I've never been asked a harder question. It's transformation. That's it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
It changes everything.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And I've been changed by it. And if we're lucky, we all have been at one point or another. And it might not be, you know, in the way that we think about it or thought it would happen. But there's some point of it in our lives. And it can be as specific as for one person, or it can be for a whole community or a nation.
I don't know how to say thank you in your language, Bilal. What was that?
Oh, no. Well, this is our neighbors.
Okay.
Mi'kmaq. That's okay. But it's very, very close. You know, we're, I liken it to, you know, for a European example, maybe German and Dutch, where they could maybe sit down and could understand a little bit of what's going on. Our languages are close like that. They're related. So Walal in Mi'kmaq, we say Waliwin.
Waliwin.
Yeah. So this means thank you in my language. And then I might say, Gatendit Geku. It was nothing. Don't even think about it. Yeah.
The French say de rien, right? Yeah.
Yeah,
De rien.
of nothing.
Yeah.
I guess it's quite similar.
But
They got it from us.
that's Jeremy Dutcher. This has been a great honor. Thank you.
Can I give you a hug?
Oh, yeah.